Hi, fourth graders. This is our last day of Read Aloud for the Liberty Tree. We have 2 more chapters to finish up to see what's happening during the American Revolutionary War. The Declaration of Independence. Independence. To most Americans, it was a beautiful word, but a frightening one. They wanted freedom, but how could they cut their ties of friendship with and loyalty to Britain and the mother country? When the Second Continental Congress gathered in Philadelphia on May 10, 1775, many delegates still hoped to avoid war. They drafted the Olive Branch Petition, an appeal to King George from His Majesty's faithful subjects in the colonies. It was a final attempt to solve the problems between America and Britain peacefully. But the king refused even to receive the Olive Branch Petition. Instead, he announced that the colonies were in a state of rebellion and readied his forces for war. Congress also began preparing for war. Because the colonial militias weren't strong enough to meet the British Army, Congress authorized the creation of a regular army, and it appointed George Washington, General and Commander-in-Chief of the forces raised in defense of American liberty. When the question of independence was discussed, Samuel Adams asked, "Is not America already independent? Why not then declare it?" Most delegates agreed with him. After a long debate, Congress appointed a committee to write a Declaration of Independence. The Declaration was actually written by Thomas Jefferson, who later became the 3rd President of the United States. John Hancock. John Hancock was president of the Second Continental Congress and the first delegate to sign the Declaration of Independence. He wrote his name firmly in large letters. He said, "King George will be able to read this without his spectacles." That's another word for glasses. His signature became so famous that John Hancock has become another term for signature. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence in 2 weeks. He worked standing at his writing desk, which was set on a high table. Americans had high hopes for the Second Continental Congress. As the delegates from Connecticut rode through New York on their way to the meeting, crowds of people came out to meet them. They unfastened the horses and pulled the carriage through the streets, themselves laughing and cheering. The unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America. Liberty. In the words that are as thrilling today as when they were written in 1776, Jefferson proclaimed the great principles of human freedom. All men are created equal. They have natural rights which cannot be taken away from them, to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Government must protect these rights. If it doesn't, the people can abolish it and create a new government. That will affect their safety and happiness. King George, the Declaration stated, had forced unfair laws and taxes on the colonies. Therefore, they now declared themselves independent. The Declaration of Independence was approved by the Continental Congress on July 2, 1776, and officially adopted on July 4th. That's why July 4th is our Independence Day, the 4th of July. When people heard the news, they laughed, cried, cheered, set off firecrackers, rang bells, and danced in the streets. John Adams wrote to his wife, "I am well aware of the toil and blood and treasure that it will cost us to maintain this declaration and support and defend these states. Yet, through all the gloom, I can see rays of ravishing light and glory. I can see that posterity will triumph in the day's transaction." Copies of the Declaration of Independence were sent by messenger throughout the colonies. It was read aloud on village greens and from the steps of the churches. In one small town in South Carolina, the only person who knew how to read was a 9-year-old boy. He stood up in front of everyone and read the entire Declaration in a loud, clear voice. His name was Andrew Jackson. Many years later, he was grown up and America was independent. He would become the 7th President of the United States. After reading our Liberty Tree book, I want you to take a minute and pause and jot down the things that you've learned about why the American Revolutionary War happened. Why did the United States decide to come together and write a Declaration of Independence and fight for their freedom? Make sure you write this down so that when your teacher calls you, you can tell them all the things you learned from our Read Aloud videos. I'll see you again next week with more videos. Have a great weekend. Bye.